Good evening, everyone. Hello, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Sorry to break up any chats that are going on. Hi, everyone at the back. Sorry, we're just going to start. I know you've probably all got very glamorous plans to go off to after this, and yeah, I don't want to keep our amazing panelists waiting too long. For those of you who I have not met, I'm Francesca Ogiman-White. I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle, and it's such a pleasure to have you here with us tonight at the Peak on such a gorgeous evening. It's so amazing to see this London skyline. I'd like every event we do to be here going forwards. But tonight we're here to discuss strength and recovery, because I think we can all agree over time our bodies start to feel less optimal. They start to go through injury, general wear and tear, maybe change from hormones, change from pregnancy. However, fortunately, there are some really interesting advances in the field of aesthetics and wellness that are holistically and through high-tech sort of means helping to get us back on track mentally and physically. Now, when we started the Beauty Triangle a few years ago, it was always with the intention to educate and empower our audiences on every aspect of their health and well-being, and always, importantly, from a 360-degree standpoint. But it was also to connect all of our audience members with the most trusted, most sought-after wellness practitioners, which brings me to my amazing lineup of speakers who we have with us tonight, starting with leading aesthetic doctor and London lip queen, London machine queen, she has so many names, Dr. Rita Rakus. Also breast surgeon and fat transfer specialist, Mrs. Jacqueline Lewis. And finally, the Peak's own osteopath, Enrico Di Candia. And really, together, they're going to be helping us to get back on track and to find new ways to feel bulletproof once more. Whether that's rebuilding our bodies, whether it's restoring lost strength, or maybe just recovering from injury, whatever that means to us. A few things before we get started with the main conversation. You'll have found some programs and some referral cards, hopefully, on your seats. If you'd like us to connect you with any of the speakers that you hear talk here tonight, you can just leave your email address, you can tick a box, we can connect you afterwards. And it's also a way that you can sign up to our mailing list and hear more about the events that we have on offer. We're going to have an audience Q&A right at the end, so if you have any burning questions, please just save them until then, put up your hand and we'll come to you at the very end. And we also have an amazing goodie bag for you, so please don't leave without picking up one of those. It will be on the exit. We've got some gorgeous products from Dr. Levy, from Skin Biome, and also from Sam Bearer, so I promise you don't want to leave any of that behind. That's enough from me, but I'm going to hand over very quickly now to our speakers. They're going to say a quick hello, introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started with the main talk, as it were. So Dr. Rita Rakus.
Thank you so much, Francesca. It's such an honour to be here tonight and be able to share some of the latest technology and information with you. I've got my clinic right next door to Harrods in Knightsbridge. We've been there about 30 years. And over that period of time, we've been lucky enough to be able to stay at the forefront of technology and to also travel the world and establish good relationships with various colleagues. And then I'm very proud to say our latest venture has been to open our clinic in LA, so that's been very exciting. So with that, I think that's enough of the
super glamorous, as you can tell. Thank you, Rita. On to Jackie.
I'm Jackie Lewis, or Jacqueline Lewis. I'm a plastic surgeon. My major interest is breast surgery. I do oncology, breast cancer, but because I trained as a plastic and cosmetic surgeon, my main practice is cosmetic surgery. So breast bigger, breast smaller, breast uplift. But Enrico and I were chatting earlier, and because I've had a pretty horrific journey with some injuries, I'm going to share with you my story about how I've got through that and still working as a surgeon. And one of my other pet interests is in medical injectables and facial aesthetics. So you don't have to have surgery necessarily. Yeah. I'll tell you my story as well.
You've got a lot to chat to us about tonight, I can tell. And finally, Enrico, thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here, Francesca. I've been an osteopath for 17 years, and I've had the privilege to work in this beautiful place with some fantastic people from all walks of life with different problems, and hopefully I'll be able to share my experiences with you.
Thank you, Enrico. So starting with our first speaker, Dr. Rita Raker, she explained to you she's one of the, well, this is my words, but I'm sure you wouldn't say it yourself, blow your own trumpet, one of the leading aesthetic doctors You certainly are. Amazing Knightsbridge Clinic, and she's often the first to have the latest, greatest, most high-tech body defining machines and treatments. But I mean, Rita, you were one of the UK's original injectors, you know, sort of, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago in the UK. But over the recent years, you've really sort of forged this path as being this London machine queen. You really focus now on the body. Is that something that you've seen coming from your patients? Are we all just becoming so much more body aware?
I think it's coming from my patients, but also especially from the rapid advancement in technology. If you can compare your iPhone 10 years ago, or, you know, iPhone 6, and the latest iPhone now, I believe, has got more power in it than when they sent the men to the moon. So technology is just going through the roof. When I first started, the only machine that was really used was Casey, and then we got IPL and things like that. But just the last few years, so what's happened, I think it's been a double sort of journey in that patients have been, because the technology has become so good, patients have been a lot more aware of what can be done. And also, it's the same as the machines for the face, machines for the body. If you act in a preventive way, you don't have to have a facelift so early. You don't have to have liposuction. You can ward off a lot of the things that you were only dealt with by surgery in the old days. So that's why it's become...
The machines are certainly rivaling a lot of the surgical procedures now, aren't they, with their results? And when it comes to the body concerns, maybe we start with female patients. What are the things that they're mostly concerned about when it comes to their bodies?
Well, if I may answer that in a different way,
Please.
it's probably your third or fourth question. Usually we've got a few milestones in that, you know, you've got your wedding day, you've got your first baby, you've got menopause. So there are different concerns throughout your life. And even before you get married, you'll have, you know, everyone, even a younger person, can have cellulite. And you don't have to have a lot to be conscious about it. But for example, you've got the classic, you know, diet, skin brushing, all that sort of thing. But the machines now for cellulite are so good, and it's so preventive, because if you can be in your early 20s and have cellulite, and it can be so preventive. So by the time you get to my age, you know, I'm 72 now. I just turned 72. So the thing is,
goodness, you look amazing.
I
need
have
to
all
come
the
and do all of your
machines.
machines.
Yeah, instead of my beauty table, you know, my cosmetic, I've got machines everywhere.
Exactly, you're in the right
morning,
place.
zap, zap, zap. So the thing is that, for example, there's cellulite. Then there's little areas of your body, even when you're younger. You know, you may have a little bit of a droopy bottom or flat bottom. You may get a little fat pad, you know, if you've been yo-yoing with your diet. So there's certain areas. Classically, it's arms, inner thighs, outer thighs, your bottom and your tummy. But they do play up at different parts of your life.
And I think you're right, those milestones as well, as being when we see the physical change, also when we see a lot of emotional change as well. And you know, you mentioned menopause. I mean, that's a really big subject of conversation, I think, going on in a lot of consulting rooms. Do you see it becoming a big part of your consultations with some of the women that you see?
Exactly. It also, the modern way to treat menopause, you know, bioidentical hormones, all that sort of thing, and also that you don't have to throw in the towel at menopause. You know, you can still, if you look after your body, and it's also internally your diet, various machines to sort of just fix up a few little problems. So you could, everyone's working later in life or leading active lifestyles. I know when I was growing up, my grandmother at 50, she was ancient, you know? So the thing is that at menopause, there's different types of help you can get from your doctor, cosmetically, from the machines. So it's just another phase rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm menopausal now, that's it. You know,
It doesn't have to be falling off a cliff. It can be sort of managed very elegantly and very gracefully. And what I find really interesting is that so many of these treatments we're talking about today are very much aimed at longevity. And you said it yourself, you know, we are living longer. I mean, what are the treatments that you're sort of using nowadays, like the devices, the machines, that are really helping to keep us feel young and feel strong?
Well, before I get on to our, you know, the magic new machine that's taken the world by storm, the Emscop Neo, we also combine it because inflammation is our big enemy. So anything to keep inflammation down and boost your immune system. So Everyone's heard of all the different fasting mimicking diets, this, that. We've got a few things like Prolon, alpha-ketoglutarate, NAD plus
The
Strix.
Prolon's really interesting. So that's the sort of diet you do at home with lots of little sort of food packages and parcels and drinks, and it mimics the intermittent fasting for the body.
Fasting, because dieting's been around for thousands of years, but this has been over the last 10 years medically researched in California by Professor Walter Longo, and they've discovered now that a 5-day fasting diet where your body thinks it's fasting will reset your immune system and decrease inflammation. In fact, it's just when I was at the new clinic in LA, I met with them, and they're just about to get FDA approved, and they're being regarded as a medicine because it can reverse things like diabetes, high blood pressure, various inflammatory diseases. And so there's 2 ways to use it. You either do the 5-day box, and there are 160 natural ingredients, but you think you're fasting. So after day 3, your body goes into a reset and your inflammation drops, immune system goes up. Then they've got 2 new approaches. They've got the 1-day reset box. So when you've been naughty,
1 day to reset.
yes.
Literally, wow.
And the way they brought that in was because all the football teams, it was amazing. When I was in LA, 2/3 of LA or Hollywood were on Prolon, you know.
Really?
But the football teams were saying to them, listen, come on, you know, our guys can't fast 5 days. So they brought in this reset box. Now they had, within 6 days, they sold out 10,000 reset boxes.
Oh my God, so it gets results.
And then they've got the bar, because one of the helpful things is, and you probably all know about, is just to fast 15 hours, you know, through the night. Of course, you can't do that all the time, and their fasting bar will really help you if you want to have a few days of fasting through the night, and that is very good for you. So we do that, the AKG, you know, various things. But our machine, the new kid off the block, is what we call Emscop Neo. Now that uses 2 types of technology, high frequency ultrasound and radio frequency, and it will reduce fat by 33%, increase muscle by 23%, and tighten skin, because it does 20,000 crunches in half an hour.
It's absolutely amazing, because the original Emscop came out, didn't it, a few years ago, and that was just using the muscle stimulating technology. So it was a great workout for your core and your bottom and your abs and your arms and your legs. But now with this addition of the radio frequency, it's also getting rid of the fat, which is really nice.
Exactly, and I didn't even know this. Apparently more women die of heart disease than breast cancer.
It's a killer, yeah,
So
absolutely.
we've got, from BTO, we've got the Emscop Neo and their Emcella chair. The Emcella chair, you sit on it fully closed. It feels quite pleasant, and
it vibrates.
It does 11,000 Kegels in half an hour. I don't think I've done 11,000 in my life.
I think I should have done this before I got pregnant.
So what happens is we do the Emscop Neo pads on the tummy to reduce the fat, tighten up. Then we do the full central core tightening with the Emcella chair, and then give you a nice central core tightening, get rid of that abdominal weight, and that really reduces your risk factor for heart disease. So it's not only that it gets your muscles in shape, reduces fat, it's also excellent for if you've had an injury and you can't exercise. It's very good for prevention of back pain. Also, after you're about 40, you tend to lose some muscle mass. And even if you're in perfect shape, a lot of our patients come and have a bit of Emscop Neo to keep their muscle mass up, because it's very good for, you know, your posture, your bones, your general health, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of areas, not only the cosmetic, that it's helpful.
No, it's going into functional, and actually Emscop, I think, was developed by physiotherapists.
Yes.
They say, so it's always been used as a rehabilitation device in a sense, and it's only recently it started to be applied to aesthetic concerns. But I mean, I hear sort of women who have had the diastasis recti from pregnancy, it can knit those muscles back together, which is really difficult to do just through classical Pilates.
Exactly.
Apparently it's very popular with men as well.
Yes, yes. Men love the Emscop. It will take them to the next. So we have a lot of famous sports people. I always know when someone's coming in, if I haven't checked the day sheet, all the girls have got makeup and their hair done and everything.
Oh, really?
Famous footballer coming in.
Hilarious.
Oh, now I see why. But you know, it can take them to the next level, and even women doing Pilates can take you to the next level. So
well, there are some muscles that are very difficult to build up. For some men it's their legs, for some women it's their triceps, particularly when you get to those milestones in age that you sort of identified earlier.
And the inner thighs,
exactly.
The new Neo now, and it's the only one that will really do saddle bags well.
Yeah, which has always been very difficult to treat. I mean, you've always had cool sculpting historically, but it's always been very difficult to sort of target that area. And what do you have in terms of fat loss devices? You mentioned that some women, some men are concerned by little pockets of fat that they just can't shift, and especially in a menopausal sort of patient where, you know, managing weight can become a bit more difficult.
We've got quite a few machines. We obviously, over a period of time, and I've got my body doctor, Dr. Galina, who's quite famous.
She's fabulous.
And
she's treated every inch of me, I feel like.
So obviously there was the classic one, cool sculpting. The newer one is the Crystal Pro, which is also a freezing machine, but the applicators are more modern and, you know, more, you can shape it to the body more. And also it doesn't have that potential side effect, although rare, of a little bit of extra fat growing, and we've all read the articles about
with
that.
The Linda Evangelista story, exactly.
Exactly.
They also use a sort of visualization device, I heard, that means that they can actually see the exact layer that they're treating, which means you don't hopefully end up with that side effect of excess fat.
Exactly. And then we've got things like the Ultracell Q+, which treats the face and the body, but there's an extra little dial on it, the linear, that will melt a bit of fat, so you can use that. We've got LipoCell, we've got quite a few, but our main one is really the Emscop Neo and then the new Crystal Pro.
And what are you seeing the most sort of transformative results with at the moment, would you say, in terms of recovering strength, sort of reclaiming your physique?
Really Emscop Neo, and I mean, this sounds a bit of an exaggeration, but I have, people are mainly, well, okay, it's popular with men, but my patients are addicted to it. They come in and buy 20 treatments at a time, you know. And it's just so
people get addicted to that feeling of strength and power again, I think.
And also, for example, I have a lot of older ladies. Well, I've got, you know, quite a few in their 70s, and okay, they're exercising, but it's harder for them, so they can just
that's so true.
Come in twice a week all the time.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned the Emsella chair, which uses the same technology to tighten the pelvic floor. Again, why do you think that sort of female rejuvenation and strengthening internally, why is that becoming such a hot topic in your industry?
I think because you can actually do something about it. These days the Emsella chair does work. It's 80% effective in, even if you got to the stage where you're wearing pads, but as far as preventive getting up through the night, oops moments, you know, when you're working out on your trampoline, etc. But the thing is, it will cure. Our surgical nurse at the clinic transformed her life. You know, no more pads, no more rushing to the bathroom. So, and this is the first machine that actually works. And as you know, there's a lot of surgery out there.
Well, there's been some quite invasive options, obviously surgically, that don't always have very beneficial results at the end of the day.
So that is one, that's I think the main reason that technology now works.
Yeah. And actually I think that's so important, because sometimes you are signing up to a course of these treatments. It is your time, your money, your energy, and you want to know that you're getting something from it.
And also, if you're at a stage, you know, your 40s, 50s, 60s, you've had a few children or you haven't had any children, and there's that technology out there that will keep you in better shape, you just feel well rather than, you know, as I said, the main one is urinary incontinence, but then there's all the other you know, symptoms in that area of the body that you can improve. And so why suffer? You know, as I said, it's all related to menopause. Why go through that suffering if you don't have to, if you can do something that's quite safe? And even with the internal rejuvenation, the newer ones now, and the one we use again.
What's the one that you use?
For BTL. And it's not a laser, so it can't burn.
It's radio
you.
frequency.
Yes, and it's only a few minutes. And you know, Dr. Galina is the expert, and you can have 3 or 4 treatments with the Emsella chair and with the Emscop Neo, and then of course with your right hormonal treatment, whatever you choose. I mean, there's no need to suffer.
Yeah, and I think what's so brilliant about all of these treatments nowadays is that there's so little downtime. Or,
yes,
I mean, with something like the Emsella,
pain.
You sit on it fully dressed, you read a magazine, and there's no pain, there's no suffering.
Yes, the old adage, no pain, no gain, is out of the window. The better the machine now, it's the same with our face machines, the better the machine is, the less pain.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the future, isn't it? The biggest barrier that a lot of patients have to any of these treatments that you offer is often the downtime and the recovery. You know, how long are they going to be out of action? Sorry, the pain factor and the recovery.
We have a laser now. You don't feel it. You read for about half an hour. There's no peeling. I mean, we used to do thousands of Fraxel, and this is, we call it our instant laser, and you have 3 treatments about once every 6 weeks. You get such a wonderful result, and you wouldn't know you're having laser.
What's this laser called?
That's called Advertax.
Yes, this is your brand new one, isn't it? It's super interesting, you know, the way that it's evolved. And you must have seen such an amazing evolution since your, how many years is it?
30 years now.
Okay, fine. Didn't want to be adding years.
And but the scary thing is, even, you know, luckily I'm always out there meeting colleagues and giving lectures at various you know, aesthetic shows, but you walk in there, say like the one in Paris or Monaco, there's 9,000 delegates, thousands of machines, and I think, oh my God, if I was starting today, how would you choose?
It's an absolute minefield.
And this is one thing we really try and help our patients with, because it's a minefield for our patients.
Yeah, of course.
What do you choose? What's appropriate? What will give you a result? Luckily, because we've been in the industry a long time and we have international colleagues, it's like anything, you know, in your area, Francesca, you know, journalists, you know, or you know, magazines, etc. So you do get a knowledge after a while, and then you can help your patient navigate what is good for them.
Yeah. Well, with 30 years under your belt, I definitely trust any machine that you're going to tell me is going to get the right effects. I'll be coming to you as soon as I've had this baby. Thank you so much,
Thank you very
Rita.
much.
That was really super interesting. Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. As she introduced herself, Jackie is breast surgeon, fat transfer specialist. She's also got a real, I think, sort of quality that makes her brilliant for dealing with women, and really sort of passionate about restoring quality of life, which I think is really key with a lot of the procedures that you perform. But Jackie, maybe you can start by telling us, I mean, you see women of all ages and stages of life coming to you, but do you have an average patient?
Before I answer that question, can I just say that I have sat on the Emscop chair in Dr. Rita Rakus' clinic.
Experience.
Did you squeal?
Well, apart from my experience, there are women who have orgasms on that chair, okay? Because you are contracted for 11,000
Kegels.
If the tighter pelvic floor wasn't a reason to go.
You're right. I've never done 11,000 in my lifetime. I sat on that chair and you can actually feel it contracting. So that is a marvelous chair. I'm postmenopausal. I've been talking to Francesca about all that pressure on the pelvic floor. I've said, do consider having a C-section, even if you feel you really want to go down that route. I was convinced to go down that route. Oh my goodness, never again. Although I did it twice. Anyway, I didn't know until I had the menopause the effects on my pelvic floor until I went on a trampoline and I had an oops moment. But anyway, I tried everything, and that chair is amazing. If every postmenopausal woman could be prescribed a treatment or a course of treatments, I would write it for them. But you know, it's
It'd be
not
amazing
possible.
if the NHS could offer something like that.
Just before I answer your question, I just need to talk about physical well-being.
That's fine, you'll get to my question at some point.
And the Emscop, because I had ruptured ACL knee. My knee was shot at a ski accident, and then I had back surgery, spinal decompression.
Can I speak up a little bit?
Spinal decompression surgery. So I was in a very bad way. I knew about Emscop. It was before the Neo. I had my core done because my neurosurgeon said, go and work on your core. So I went and did all these exercises, and I still felt crap, excuse the expression. I did a course of treatment with Emscop. I had toned abs. It was amazing. So now I'll answer your question. I'll answer your question now. I see women of all ages. I don't see children. So I get teenagers over the age of 18 with asymmetry. I get them when their parents want to pay for their big breast reductions, and that's an amazing operation, because if someone is like this and they're walking around hunched shoulders with their big sweatshirts, and they never put their shoulders back because they're so self-conscious and their breasts are pulling their shoulders and they're so heavy, and they've got back pain and they've got grooves on their shoulders and they've got the rashes beneath their breasts. you reduce their breasts, you lift their nipples, and they're different people. So
that quality of life must be
it's
extraordinary.
amazing, because part of the consultation is I say, what do you want to achieve? And they say, whatever. And I say, yes, I can do this. But I want you to start getting into the mindset of coming in after your operation with your shoulders back and your nipples pointing forwards. So that's a young person. And then there are women who have had small breasts, never developed like me. And I had to save up for my operation. Actually, my husband paid for my 40th birthday. I had breast augmentation. But it was a long period where I felt really self-conscious. I couldn't wear a bra. It was, you know, crop top Marks and Spencer things for me, because I could never wear a bra. I had this deformity and I was really fat. And it was when I went into a French operating theatre. I did a stint in France, and you know the way French women all wear matching underwear, bras and knickers. And they saw me in my Marks and Spencer unmatching underwear, and they came with this catalogue of lingerie and said, why don't you choose something from this? You know, it doesn't matter about your size, you can have a padding and whatever. And no matter what I did, there was nothing there, so no matter what padding, it would never show a cleavage. So anyway, I had my operation. So I see women of all ages who need, who want breast volume, so breast augmentation, and there are two ways you can do that, with implants and or fat transfer. So there's only one thing that I don't like the sound of with this Emscop Neo, is that it dissolves the fat.
Because you want the fat.
Fat is such a valuable asset to have. It's okay if you never want to have it up here, and you think you might never want to have it up here, but if you are slim and you've had your children, and you end up with a low breast footprint where everything goes down south, even with implants, you'll have bigger breasts down here, and then you'll have a dip here. So that's where the fat comes in. If we can liposuction some of that extra fat, we can put it in here. And the lovely thing about fat is that not only does it provide volume and soft tissue cover, but it will also improve the skin quality.
Well, it's regenerative, isn't it? All of those growth factors and the fat are so good for your skin quality.
Amazing. So let's talk about exosomes as well, because
what are exosomes, just for everyone who doesn't know?
Exosomes are these extracellular vesicles. So say you've got a cell. Remember biology. You have a cell and you have a cell next to it. So in fat, you've got lots and lots of cells. And how do they talk to each other? Well, the mother stem cell will tell the cells, keep dividing or stop dividing, oh, it's your time to die. And I've got the signal here, you've been eating a lot, so put more lipid in your fat cell. So how do cells communicate with each other? They form little vesicles with the messenger RNA and proteins and peptides, and that's how they send signals to each other. Okay. So all is not lost. If you've gone to Dr. Rakus and had all your fat removed, we can't give you fat to fill out your breast, but you can actually get fat-derived exosomes off the shelf by a Korean company. And it is
so these
available
all come from Korea, don't
today.
They? It's very high-tech.
So exosomes are super high-tech. There have been multi-billion dollar investments. There are 4 major companies, 2 of them all over the world. There are 2 of them that only do therapeutics, so exosomes are really great. The future is amazing with exosomes for heart disease, tendon repair, osteoarthritis, liver disease.
It's using our body's own natural resources, which I think is such a nice, elegant way to heal.
But for skin rejuvenation, if we can't liposuction your fat and then process it to get the stem cells, you can get exosomes off the shelf.
So going back to fat transfer, that was a very long answer. I think you answered all of my questions, so I don't know what I'm going to talk about for the next 10 minutes. No, when it comes to the fat and you want to put it back into someone's breasts, maybe they're deflated after breastfeeding or weight loss, whatnot, there are still ways that you can bulk up areas of fat on the body, aren't there? Sort of through what you eat, perhaps, diet, that sort of thing.
So you're absolutely right. There was this paper that I found in my search when I was doing my master's dissertation. If you overeat before you have liposuction, the fat cells around underneath your skin and most parts of your body will just make that lipid droplet bigger. But the magic area, your saddlebags, those cells actually multiply in number. So
that's
you
the area
could
to go
actually
for.
get a harvest of fat cells from the saddlebag area if you overeat, if you find that you don't have very much fat. But usually I do have a lot of thin people after childbirth, after breastfeeding, and they've achieved their ideal weight, and then they come to me and they say, I want to feel womanly again. They look like bags, empty bags, because that's what happens when you breastfeed. You lose all that lovely plump glandular tissue, and it's then replaced by fat, and you end up with a low breast footprint, and they look a bit sad, and the nipples are pointing downwards. So you can get a little bit of a lift with volume augmentation. If you need a significant lift, you'll need to have your skin envelope tightened. That's the mastopexy. But if you're very thin and you have a mastopexy and breast augmentation with implants, you are still going to see that dip here.
That ridge where the
ridge.
implant is visible beneath the skin.
So that's where the fat comes in.
Because you use it to smooth over
Smooth
it.
over the
That's
edge
nice.
of the implant and the surface of the
But
implant.
with a fat transfer to your breast, you can only go up, 1 cup size, maybe 2 at the most?
Even if someone who has a lot of fat, maximum 1 cup size. So anyone who wants a significant volume augmentation, I normally say, if they're very thin, have an implant, and then I go through the whole rigmarole of the downside of implants, because you have to have them exchanged every 10 to 15 years and all the risks with it. But with fat, at least then you can mask the implant and it looks more natural.
And I think that's what everyone obviously wants from the breast implant sort of nowadays, is that natural projection.
No, not everyone.
Really?
Some people want
I
the
think
stuck
probably the
on
people
look.
you see. I don't know, I feel like I know your patient group quite well. But when it comes to the implants, can you tell us, what are you using at the moment? Because there's obviously been a few scare stories about implants, shape, size, material, links to cancer. So what is the safest option for anyone considering this?
So in the 60s, when they were first produced, there'd be silicone shells filled with silicone, and then people said, oh yeah, let's try and be clever, let's put soybean oil in, because then you can see...
Really?
Or you can see the breast tissue on a mammogram, or let's use saline, salty water, and they just feel like bags of salty water. They don't feel like natural breast tissue. And then we're back down to square one, because the the saline implants don't have the look and feel of breast. All of the soybean oil implants had to be removed. They were taken off the market. The hydrogel implants, which felt more like gel, they used to bring so much fluid into the implant, breasts used to swell up. They've been taken off the market. So
what's left?
The manufacturers then came up with this really good idea of making an anatomical teardrop-shaped implant that looked more natural. And they had to make the surface textured to act like a Velcro.
So that it didn't spin around, so you won't get a weird
because
shape.
if you had one here and one there, it would look wonky. And then they've all been taken off the market, a certain company's implants, because of the rare risk of breast implant-associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. You've heard of Hodgkin's lymphoma? It's like a malignancy associated with breast implants. I used to be able to say to my patients, there's no increased risk of breast cancer with implants. That is still the case, but there is this risk of BIA-ALCL, the lymphoma, that's associated with textured breast implants. So now I only use smooth implants. They have to be round, because if they spin, then it doesn't really matter. And because one of the criticisms with round implants is that you might see the edge or the surface. That's where the fat comes in, to just mask it, to make it look more natural.
So we've spoken a lot about sort of post-weight loss and post-pregnancy, but what about that menopausal group again? Do you see a lot of those women in your practice? And I suppose, is there anything that you can do as a surgeon that benefits them when they're going through that stage of life?
So then we need the Dr. Rakuses and the Enricos
You refer.
to help get them back into shape, because my body completely changed with the menopause. I had very little shape anyway, but I lost my waist and my hips everything just drops. So with the menopause, I think if you look after your body and you are at the right BMI, body mass index, you're the right weight for your height, and you are fit with enough muscle, then we can deal with the skin sagging. Then we can deal with the volume. But yes, we can do anything, breast bigger, breast smaller, breast uplift. And I suppose a lot of women after the menopause, they notice their skin sagging, and a lot of them want uplifts.
And what about those women who in earlier life had the breast augmentation, they've got the implant, do they start to notice that their breasts are changing shape over time, that they're dropping, that the implant is too heavy? You hear a lot of stories of women actually wanting to get a smaller implant eventually because it just feels more in keeping with their body.
So you know the way implant manufacturers say, oh, you should think about getting them exchanged every 10 to 15 years. Well, they want to sell a lot of implants, but
do we need them changed that often?
I've seen pristine implants after 20 years, and the reason I took the implants out was because that lady needed a mastopexy. So I normally say, yes, there is an increased risk of leakage and rupture after 10 to 15 years, so start getting regular ultrasound scans and start thinking of what you want to have done, because they usually drop, and people normally need mastopexies.
Yeah. And final question, is there anything that is really helpful in terms of the recovery when it comes to these augmentations, or in fact any surgical procedure that you offer?
Any surgery, you need to prepare yourself. Physical fitness, certainly have your body prepared. Proteins are the building blocks for healing. There is this superb product which incorporates hydrolyzed marine collagen, all the antioxidants and goodies and vitamins and supplements. It's a prescribed product.
What's it called?
See Skin Aid MD. I used to see a lot of wound breakdown, especially at the T-junction with mastopexy and inverted T-scar breast reductions. I don't see that anymore.
Really?
Healing is so much better. And I took it myself when I had my surgeries. So yeah, you need to get it prescribed though.
And you can vouch for it. And anything to do beforehand?
You need to be at your ideal weight. If you're breastfeeding,
so not yo-yo weight?
No, you need to have stopped breastfeeding for at least 6 months before any surgery, because if you think about that priming of the breast tissue that could form milk, especially if it's stimulated during surgery, you don't want that. Be at your ideal weight, because if I refashion your breast envelope and you lose weight, then I will have fashioned the volume left behind, and you'll just end up, if the skin envelope is too big with your weight loss, droopy again. Likewise, if you put on more weight afterwards, your scars will probably stretch. So yeah, ideal steady weight.
So a lot of lifestyle factors to consider as well.
Definitely, and be super fit, because it's a long operation. You don't want a DVT or deep venous thrombosis, you don't want a pulmonary embolus, you want to enjoy your surgery, so be as fit as you possibly can.
Agreed. Good advice to leave us on. Thank you so much, Jackie. And final speaker, Enrico. I know I need to shuffle forward to see you. So Enrico is the Peaks osteopath here. He's brilliant. I've not yet seen him, but I'm desperate to. And really, I think you're the first port of call for anyone suffering from injury, just trying to get their body back into sort of peak condition. Excuse the pun for the club. But tell us, what are the sort of key factors that bring people to your door when it comes to sort of needing to get their body back into peak condition?
I think coming back to the breast surgery, I see a lot of people after surgery, they have a lot of adhesions actually, within the axilla. So that will actually alter how the posture moving forward can actually be. And I think a skilled surgeon will also look at predisposing kind of physical conditions such as scoliosis and muscle imbalance and then accordingly perform such a surgery. So I've seen some very good work and some other work which really the aftercare was very poor. So apart from these specific cases which I've seen, I think I'm very privileged to see a lot of lovely people from all walks of life and reporting all sorts of different problems. Funny enough, after the first lockdown, there was a lot of ladies getting injured, lower back epidemic, because they were hoovering the stairs for the first time.
First world problems.
And exactly, and it was very funny.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But yes, I'm also seeing a lot of athletes and sports enthusiasts and people that want to look after themselves. Even posture tells a lot about someone, how they interact with the world and how self-confidence they can be. So I do a good degree of work with someone that wants to look better, but also to feel better and to interact with the world in a different.
It's the same as what Jackie and Rita do, in the sense that it's taking the aesthetic, but it's also adding the functionality back to it as well. All of us want our bodies to support us later into life.
Absolutely, but all these machines are wonderful. Actually, I will definitely look into them. But there's something about being in the gym and being able to perform an exercise, or even just going for a long walk, to achieve something, to finish something. It just gives you, number one, all your systems work. Your cardiovascular, your digestive system, your breathing mechanics work in great harmony when you achieve something. And number two, I think there's an established connection between core strength, physical strength, and mental well-being, and how we cope with stress and anxiety, for example.
So if I came to see you as a new patient, what could I expect from a consultation with you? Sort of how do you work with people in your treatment
Yeah,
group?
I mean, the classic kind of approach of an case-taking examination, physical examination. But then I think body language tells most of the story. And it's hard to explain and to put into words, but we kind of get a sense of the vitality of the patient, of the person, and also how by gently fracturing and stretching the legs and the arms and the neck, what kind of restrictions the body has, and also you can have an image of how that body performs physiologically and functionally in the world.
I feel like you often have to join the dots as an osteopath. Sometimes the patient can be presenting with so many different symptoms, but they don't still understand what the root cause of a lot of these, injuries or pains or inflammations they're experiencing are.
Oh, very much so. I mean, a lot of people are very poorly body aware. You tell them to relax an arm, for example, and they're just stiff as hell, and you're thinking, what's going on? So they don't even have the first idea of how tight they are, let alone understanding the problem. But also, it comes back to for example, I love working with the rib cage, with the breathing, with the diaphragm, because that affects not only, for instance, the visceral, your digestion, which we all know about the gut-mind kind of relationship, but also it affects the nervous system and the state of arousal of the nervous system. Like you were saying, you see a lot of people that are very self-conscious perhaps, or very stressed, and the first port of call for the body is to go into this flight and fright, sympathetic nervous system part of arousal. So you need to, when you treat someone, you need to make them understand that, for instance, their constant migraines, it's actually coming from the poor breathing mechanics, for instance. And I think education, it's
so breath work is at the root of actually a lot of the stuff that you do.
I would say it's definitely a component that I always include, and I think it's paramount, really. The first thing that we do, say in meditation or yoga, is to take a deep breath, right? But if you actually have, due to surgery or trauma that you might have had in the past, you actually have physical restriction, it would be really hard for them to take, to inhale enough oxygen in order to actually, even think about the skin appearance and so on. the level of oxygenation of the blood, it's highly impacted by the amount of oxygen that you can take in.
It's so true.
So
You're depleting yourself of energy if you're not breathing properly. But sometimes it's people, you know, and they haven't had surgery, they haven't had an injury, but we're just not using enough of our breath sort of lung capacity.
Absolutely. But also it's day-to-day posture, you know, that's a stressor in itself, you know, the phone, the screens. I see people that spend 16 hours in front of 8 screens, you know, so inevitably there's going to be a trade-off.
You must have seen such an interesting evolution with us just becoming so much more desk-focused,
It's
laptop-focused.
business, I'm not complaining for sure.
But I can, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I can vouch for that because I've been a patient of Enrico's, and even with all my gadgets in the surgery, there's nothing to replace having an expert like him analyse you, doing a bespoke treatment to you, and you, as you said, it's the mind, the body, it's everything, and the traditional methods, there's nothing to replace it.
Thank you.
And it has such a powerful effect on how you feel inside as well. You and I spoke about this before the event, but it can even sort of change hormonal balance in a sense, can't it?
Oh, totally. I mean, think about cortisol and adrenaline, which are, again, those hormones that when we are stressed, they rage through our body. And very often we have no way to just calm them down. So the treatment involves also a lot of relaxing technique. I'm also an acupuncturist as well, so I try to read the patient, read the body, and try to have a positive effect on that. But definitely trying to reset the nervous system somewhat and to bring them in a range which is a little bit more acceptable. So inevitably when that stressful event occurs, your response is not going to be super high, it's just going to be a little bit more muted.
So it's almost rewiring the body so it
Absolutely.
doesn't sort of get triggered and sort of jump back into that negative pattern.
Totally, yeah, absolutely.
What was I going to ask you next? Oh yes, can you physically pick up on sort of stress and tension in the body when you do your manipulations? Can you feel anything different in our tissues?
Mean, apart from the physical, you know, restrictions, which are, you know, for a skilled practitioner, they're easily picked up. The stress tissue, imagine you've gone to the gym, you have a good workout, and you feel very sore the next day. So that's a good response. That's a good response to a stress. But if you're stressed chronically, then you're going to have that same sort of inflamed tissue, but constantly, you know, year after year. And we perceive that there's a degree of kind of sponginess within the tissue. You
can actually feel that then?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's through very fine palpation, but yeah, you can definitely pick it up.
Yeah.
And
how do your acupuncture needles work? At what stage does that come into the treatment?
I think it's interesting. At any stage, I would say it's aimed perhaps at relaxing muscles or relaxing kind of relaxes joints, but also it can also be used as just a precursor, just to put the body in a more acceptive sort of state. Yeah. And then you can actually go deeper in terms of the adjustments that you may want to.
Because I guess it's oxygenating and bringing sort of fresh blood to those target sites that you're trying to
correct. Totally, at the localized level, absolutely, but also it has an effect again on the reactivity of the nervous system. So it brings us back to your breathing rate, to your heart rate as well. And definitely, I would say 99% of the people, when they leave the treatment room, they're definitely more mellow, more relaxed.
Oh, I can imagine. Even your voice is very mellow. I feel like just an hour with you and I would feel really chilled in your treatment room. And how you and I were speaking about sort of post-pregnancy just before this. How do you help those women sort of rebuild their bodies after they've been through sort of such a shift? Yeah,
I mean, you know, pregnancy is so fascinating. You see the evolution taking place in front of you in 9 months. The amount of changes that go through the woman's body, it's remarkable. And it's very, you know, yes, exactly. It's very sudden. And we are there just to allow a smoother transitions between the 3 trimesters, as well as, you know, preparing the body for you know, this labor, which is, you know, a big undertaking, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, like Jacqueline was saying, the more prepared you are before the actual pregnancy, as much as you can be, the easier it will be, for sure.
And then sort of what happens on the other side of the pregnancy?
Yeah, totally.
How do you help them, any patient regain mobility after any sort of injury or trauma? Or
we have the help of these amazing machines, of course, but also it's about harmonizing and integrating, yes, the pelvic floor, the core, the back muscles, but also the viscera. And you may get a degree of adhesions, for example, within, the gut and so on, as well as, that sort of alteration in the diaphragm, for instance, which are main breathing muscle. And generally, according if it's your first, second, or third, pregnancy, you may have changes that will stay with you for a long time. So in a way, it's good to intervene sooner rather than let this sort of alterations.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, for sure.
And what about menopausal patients? Is there anything you can do when it comes to the sort of physical symptoms that people experience?
Yeah, physically, obviously, menopause manifests itself in so many different ways. Headaches I see a lot of, and that's definitely something that we can give, prompt relief. It comes back to, again, hormone balance. Estrogen tends to be depleted somewhat, and that will have an effect on the elasticity of the joints, of the tissues, of the collagen. So again, it's all about kind of preventing problem from developing, really, and maintenance as well. So
is supplementation a part of what you do?
that's interesting. I found it quite useful when everyone to a certain extent, but I found hyaluronic acid in tablet form being quite useful in terms of lubrication, in terms of suppleness
for
of the
joints
tissues
and
so on,
exactly.
And obviously
And probably
for
skin
hair and
quality.
skin and so on. Sorry?
And probably skin quality
Yes,
as well.
totally,
I mean,
totally.
HAs and everything we throw on our faces
Totally.
nowadays.
But anything anti-inflammatory, anti-aging is certainly something to do. I was reading about hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers, and there's a lot more evidence that may support good changes in terms of oxygenation at cellular level, as well as collagen stimulation and so on. So
yeah, absolutely.
and there's quite a few clinics offering it.
Exactly. I'm surprised they don't offer it here. Maybe one day.
Well, maybe. Where's Ben?
Watch this space. And finally, you're also a reformer Pilates teacher, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, how does that fit into your approach when it comes to osteopathy? How can it help us to rebuild our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, I have, a good view of how the body performs passively, and then when you see the body functionally, you can spot and you can kind of enrich the knowledge of that particular body. And I work in conjunction with my treatment in order to just, according to whatever goals you may have, just to send you to peak performance, as we say.
Stole my pun. Have you seen any really transformative sort of success stories with patients? Anyone who you've worked with over the sort of years and you've really turned them around?
For sure. I think I'm very pleased to see a lot of ladies in their 50s and 60s actually looking better in their 60s than they did maybe in the late 40s.
Really? That's so nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's they need to put in the effort, obviously, with all these experts that we have here.
Yeah.
But also I think there's, as I was saying to you, the physical functional effort that you put through, in the gym, for instance, or when you do rehabilitation, I think it pays not only in the body, but also in the mind. So the attitude towards life changes completely, I feel.
Yeah,
and it makes you more confident and so on. Especially for women, very often you hear stories of women not speaking up for themselves or not asking for the pay rise and so on. And I've seen that sort of transformation, that confidence which brings them, makes them more sure of themselves.
That boost in self-esteem just from having physically done something so good for their body.
Exactly.
That's really nice to hear. Thank you, Enrico. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's discussion, and we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A, but I just wanted to sort of say firstly how fascinating it's been to listen to each of our speakers. I think they've all correlated so beautifully, and I love that what each of you did was really picked up on the emotional benefits of all of these treatments at every stage of life. And I think we can all agree that prevention is definitely better than cure when it comes to all of these things. But obviously, if you're way past that point, then I think you guys are definitely the best in the business to go and see for all of these different sort of ailments. And thank you for coming. Thank you to our amazing panelists. You were so fascinating and insightful, and I loved how all of your conversations sort of fed into one another. So